What if I told you that at this very moment, somewhere in Manhattan, a billionaire is raising a glass of $3,000 champagne, celebrating what he thinks is his perfect new life with his mistress? He's smiling. She's laughing. They're toasting to freedom. But 7 miles away, his pregnant wife, the woman he called weak, the woman he thought he'd broken, the woman he
To our
dismissed as
success.
nothing more than
Cheers
a
to that,
convenient
Julian.
accessory to his empire, is holding a pen. And with one signature, she's about to take everything. Not half, not some, everything. His father saw this coming. He built a trap into the prenup that his arrogant son never bothered to read. A single clause buried on page 73. And it's about to detonate like a nuclear bomb right as the champagne touches his lips. This isn't just a story about betrayal. This is a story about a woman who stood on a balcony 47 floors up, decided not to jump, and instead chose to fight back in the most devastating way imaginable. This is the story of how calling a baby efficient cost a man his entire fortune. And it all happens in the next 90 minutes. Are you ready? Because what you're about to hear, they will change how you think about prenups, power, and revenge forever. The sound you're about to hear wasn't a celebration. It was the starting gun for the complete demolition of a billionaire's life. At a corner table in Oro, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants, Julian Ashford raised a crystal flute of Dom Perignon Rosé. The champagne caught the light from the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting pink reflections across the white tablecloth. Across from him sat Vanessa Sterling, her dark hair cascading over bare shoulders, her crimson Valentino dress a calculated choice. She smiled, predatory and triumphant. To new beginnings, Julian said, his voice rich with satisfaction. To finally building the life I deserve. To freedom. To freedom, Vanessa echoed him, her glass touching his with a delicate clink. They drank. The champagne was crisp, complex, with notes of strawberry and smoke. It tasted to Julian like victory. What he didn't know was that at that exact moment, 7 miles downtown in a wood-paneled law office, another woman was also putting pen to paper. Catherine Ashford, known as Kat to those who remembered who she was before she became Mrs. Julian Ashford, sat at a conference table. Her honey blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her navy dress was modest, professional, unremarkable. But her 18-week pregnant belly was unmistakable. Across from her sat Marcus Wolfe, a silver-haired attorney whose steel-gray eyes had seen everything twice. Between them lay a document that would change 3 lives forever. Once you sign this, there's no going back, Marcus said quietly. Are you certain? Kat's hand trembled as she placed it on her stomach. She thought of Julian's voice 2 months earlier when she told him she was pregnant. She heard again his response, the word that had shattered everything. Efficient. Her hand steadied. She picked up the pen. I'm certain, she said. At 8:47 post-meridium, 2 things happened simultaneously. Julian's champagne touched his lips. Kat's signature appeared on the document titled Formal Invocation of Fidelity, Protection, Provision. He thought he'd won. She knew she had. But to understand how we arrived at this moment, we need to rewind. We need to go back 6 months to when Kat still believed in fairy tales, when she still thought love could survive in a gilded cage, when she still hoped that the man she married might remember why he'd married her. We need to go back to the beginning of the end. 6 months earlier, on a Tuesday evening in early December, Catherine Ashford sat alone at an 18-foot dining table in a Fifth Avenue penthouse worth $45 million. The table could seat 20. Tonight, it seated 1. Chef Michael had prepared Julian's favorite, Wagyu beef with truffle risotto, butter-poached lobster tail, asparagus tips so fresh they'd been delivered from upstate that morning. A $2,000 bottle of Bordeaux breathed on the sideboard, though Kat was drinking sparkling water. She'd been feeling nauseated for weeks, exhausted. Her period was late, but she'd been too afraid to take a test, too afraid to hope, too afraid to face another disappointment alone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian. Tokyo call running late. Don't wait up. Kat looked at the empty chair at the head of the table. She looked at the food growing cold. She looked at the windows that showed her a glittering Manhattan skyline that felt a million miles away. She picked up her fork, put it down. picked up her wine glass, realized it was water, set it down again. From the doorway, Maria Santos watched with a breaking heart. Maria had been the Ashford family's head housekeeper for 15 years. She'd started when Julian's father, Richard, was still alive. She'd watched Julian transform from an ambitious but decent young man into something harder, colder, more ruthless. And she'd watched Kat disappear, bit by bit, dinner by dinner, until the vibrant, Yale-educated art curator who'd walked through these doors 6 years ago had become a ghost in her own home. "Mrs. Kat," Maria said softly, entering the dining room, "you need to eat. For the baby." Kat's head snapped up. "What baby?" Maria's weathered face softened into a gentle smile. "A woman who raised 4 children knows the signs. How far along?" Kat's eyes filled with tears. "I just found out today. I haven't told Julian yet." Maria sat down beside her, something she'd never done in 15 years of service. But this wasn't about being a housekeeper anymore. This was about being a woman who recognized another woman in trouble. "What does your heart tell you?" Maria asked. Kat laughed, but it came out as a sob. "My heart doesn't know what to feel anymore." She pulled out her phone and showed Maria a photo. It was from their honeymoon in Santorini 7 years ago. Julian was tanned, relaxed, laughing. He had his arms around Kat, and she was glowing. On the back of the printed version she kept in her sunroom, he'd written a note. "You make me want to be a better man. Forever yours, Jay." "What happened to us?" Kat whispered. Maria didn't answer. She didn't need to. They both knew. 2 days later, on Thursday evening, Kat prepared to tell her husband he was going to be a father. She'd planned everything perfectly. She wore the blue dress Julian had loved when they were dating, the one he'd said made her eyes look like the Mediterranean. She'd had Chef Michael prepare scallops, Julian's favorite, followed by dry-aged ribeye. She'd bought a small box and placed inside it a pair of tiny white baby shoes, her positive pregnancy test, and a card that read, "Coming January 2024. Julian arrived home at 9:47 post-meridium, 3 hours late. He was on his phone when he walked through the door, barking orders to someone in Singapore. He tossed his $3,000 Tom Ford suit jacket to Maria without looking at her, without acknowledging her existence. He sat down at the table, still scrolling through emails on his phone. "Julian," Kat said, her voice shaking, "I made your favorite dinner." "Catherine," he said, not looking up, "I have the Singapore office in 10 minutes. Make it quick." Kat slid the wrapped box across the polished table. Julian looked at it with suspicion. "What's this? It's not my birthday." "Just open it," Kat said. He opened it with the same efficiency he applied to everything else in his life. He looked at the contents. His face was unreadable. The silence stretched for 15 seconds. 20, 30. Kat couldn't breathe. "I'm 8 weeks along," she finally said. "We're going to have a baby." Julian leaned back in his chair. His expression wasn't joy. It wasn't shock. It wasn't even curiosity. It was calculation. "Well," he said slowly, "that's efficient." Kat blinked. "What?" "Good timing, actually," Julian continued, his mind already working through the implications. "Demographics show family men pull better with investors. The Ashford heir. We can announce it in the fourth quarter shareholder meeting, maybe do a spread in Fortune magazine. This is good for the brand." Kat felt something crack inside her chest. "Julian, do you even want this baby?" He looked irritated by the question. "Of course I do. It's good for the legacy." The Ashford line continues. He checked his watch, an $80,000 Patek Philippe. "I need to take this call. We'll discuss logistics later." He stood and left the room, already dialing Singapore. Kat sat alone at the table. Her hand moved to her stomach. The baby shoes sat between the untouched scallops, small and white and impossibly hopeful. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her belly. "I'm so sorry." From the doorway, Maria witnessed it all. She saw the exact moment Kat's heart broke. She saw the moment hope died in her eyes. Later that night, Kat sat on the bathroom floor, her back against the cold marble of the tub. Her sister Grace had texted her. "Did you tell him? How did he react?" Kat stared at the message. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but she couldn't bring herself to type the truth. She couldn't say out loud that her husband had called their baby efficient, that he'd reduced the most profound moment of her life to a polling advantage. Instead, she stared at her reflection in the mirror across from her. What kind of mother brings a baby into this? She asked her reflection. Her reflection had no answer. She placed her hand on her stomach and felt, for the first time, truly alone. 2 weeks passed. Kat moved through them in a fog, smiling when she was supposed to smile, attending the charity events Julian's schedule required, playing the role of the perfect wife while feeling less like a person every day. She was 10 weeks pregnant now. The morning sickness was brutal. The exhaustion was bone deep, and Julian didn't notice. On a gray Tuesday morning, Kat sat in her sunroom sanctuary, the one place in the 12,000 square foot penthouse that felt like hers. It was filled with her mother's old books, plants she tended herself, a worn velvet armchair from her childhood home in Boston. This was where she came to remember who she used to be. She was reviewing the monthly Household American Express statement, a task Julian had delegated to her years ago because he considered it beneath him. Bergdorf Goodman, $4,200. Chef Services, $8,900. Metropolitan Museum Gala Table, $25,000. Then her eyes caught on a line item that made her pause. Sterling Gallery, Soho. Art acquisition, $85,000. Kat knew every major gallery in Manhattan. She'd been a museum curator before she married Julian. She'd never heard of Sterling Gallery, and Julian hated contemporary art. He called it money laundering for people with no taste. She opened her laptop and typed Sterling Gallery Soho into the search bar. The website that appeared was sleek, minimalist, aggressive. The kind of cutting-edge conceptual art Julian had always despised. And there, on the About page, was a photo of the owner, Vanessa Sterling. She was beautiful in a way that made Kat's stomach turn. Dark hair, sharp features, confident posture. She stood next to a twisted metal sculpture, one hand on her hip, her expression challenging the camera. Representing the cutting edge of contemporary conceptualism, her bio read. Kat's hands started to shake. She opened the subsidiary accounts, the ones Julian had given her access to years ago and then forgotten about. His private holding company at American Express, his personal investment account statements. The pattern emerged like a photograph in a dark room, slowly coming into focus. VS Consulting Services, $12,000 per month, started 14 months ago. Cartier, $47,000. Kat had received no jewelry. The Greenwich Hotel, $3,200. Julian had told her he was in Chicago that night. Ovando Florist, $2,400. Delivery address, Sterling Gallery. Every business trip coincided with charges in that city. Every late-night board meeting coincided with hotel charges in Manhattan. 14 months of deception. Over $400,000 spent. Kat ran to the bathroom and vomited. When she emerged, Maria was there, holding a cool washcloth. "Mrs. Kat," Maria said gently. "What's wrong?" Kat handed her the printouts with shaking hands. "He's having an affair." Maria sat beside her on the sunroom floor. There was a long silence. "I know," Maria finally said. Kat's head snapped up. "You knew?" Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I saw them. 3 months ago. He brought her here, to this apartment, when you were in Boston visiting your sister." Kat felt the air leave her lungs. "Here? In our home?" "I wanted to tell you," Maria said, her voice breaking, "but I was afraid. I have 4 grandchildren to support. If Mr. Julian fired me, I couldn't help them. I couldn't help my daughter. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Kat. I should have told you." Kat took Maria's weathered hand. "I'm not angry at you, I understand." But inside, she felt like she was falling, falling and falling with no ground in sight. "The prenup," Kat whispered. "If I leave him, I get $5 million. That sounds like a lot, but not for raising a child in this city. Not with what lawyers cost, not when I haven't worked in 6 years and no one will hire a pregnant woman." Maria squeezed her hand. "There has to be another way." Kat looked at the evidence spread across her sunroom floor. "I need to know everything. How long? How serious? I need proof." "I can help you," Maria said. "I see things, I hear things. He doesn't notice me." An alliance was formed. 3 days later, Kat sat in a nondescript coffee shop in the West Village, wearing sunglasses even though it was overcast outside. Across from her sat Detective Rachel Morrison, a former NYPD investigator who now ran a private firm that specialized in exactly this kind of case. Rachel was in her early 40s, with tired eyes that had seen every variation of infidelity imaginable. She slid a folder across the table but didn't open it. "Mrs. Ashford," she said quietly, "before we go further, I need to ask you something. Are you sure you want to know? Because once you know, you can't unknow it. Some marriages survive suspicion. Very few survive proof." Kat thought about the word efficient. She thought about eating dinner alone night after night. She thought about the baby growing inside her and the father who saw that baby as a polling advantage. "I'm 12 weeks pregnant," Kat said, her voice steady. "My husband called my baby efficient. I need to know if I'm raising this child alone or if there's something left to save." Rachel respected honesty. "2 weeks, full surveillance. It'll cost $15,000. Kat slid her a personal credit card across the table. "Whatever it costs. I need to know the truth." The next 2 weeks were hell. Kat smiled at Julian over breakfast while he scrolled through his phone, not looking at her. She attended a charity gala on his arm, wearing a designer gown that hid her growing bump, standing beside him while he took business calls during her speech about children's literacy. She lay awake at night in their king-size bed while he worked late, which she now understood meant he was with Vanessa. She whispered apologies to her growing belly. "I'm sorry you're coming into those. I'm sorry your father doesn't want you. But I want you. I promise you. I want you." Grace called from Boston. "Kat, you look exhausted. Are you sleeping?" Kat lied. "Just pregnancy fatigue. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was breaking. But she needed the proof before she could let herself fully shatter. On a cold Friday afternoon, a manila envelope arrived by courier. Kat took it to her sunroom, her hands trembling so badly she could barely open it. Inside were a dozen 8x10 glossy photographs. Photo 1, Julian entering Sterling Gallery at 2 o'clock on a weekday afternoon. Photo 2, Julian and Vanessa having lunch at an outdoor cafe, her hand covering his on the table, both of them laughing. Photo 3, Vanessa looking up at Julian with an expression Kat recognized because she used to receive it, the way a woman looks at a man she loves. Photo 4, leaving the Greenwich Hotel together at 11 Post Meridian. Photo 5, the Hamptons Beach House, the one Julian had told her he was using for a guy's weekend. Vanessa in a bikini on the deck, Julian's arm around her waist. Photo 6, taken through an apartment window. Vanessa's Soho loft. Julian standing behind her, arms wrapped around her, kissing her neck, and Vanessa's face reflected in the glass, smiling with possession. The final photograph was the one that destroyed her. They were standing in front of Tiffany and Company on Fifth Avenue. Vanessa's hand was pressed against the window glass, pointing at engagement rings. Julian stood beside her, smiling. Kat's world collapsed. Not just an affair, a whole separate life. An apartment he was paying for. Regular visits spanning 14 months. While she ate dinner alone. While she curated his art collection. While she managed his public image. While she loved him. Kat collapsed on the sunroom floor, photos scattered around her like shrapnel. A guttural sob tore from her chest, the kind of sound that comes from somewhere deep and primal, the sound of a heart breaking in real time. She screamed into a pillow so Julian wouldn't hear. He was home, in his office on a conference call, completely unaware that his wife was shattering in the next room. She called Grace, could barely speak through the sobs. "Come home," Grace said immediately. "Right now. Pack a bag and come to Boston." "I can't," Kat managed. "The prenup. If I leave, I only get $5 million. That's nothing for raising a baby in this economy. I'd need to work, but who hires a pregnant woman? And after the baby, childcare costs in Manhattan are insane. I can't afford to leave." "Then stay with me and Tom," Grace said. "We'll figure it out." "In your 2-bedroom apartment?" Kat asked. "With your 2 kids already sharing a room?" Grace's silence was answer enough. They both knew it wouldn't work. Kat looked at the photographs spread across her floor. She looked at Vanessa, beautiful and successful and free. Everything Kat used to be before she made herself small to fit into Julian's world. She realized something in that moment. She was trapped. Pregnant, financially dependent, legally bound to a man who was building a future with someone else. For the first time since she was a child, Kat felt truly powerless. Kat decided to fight for her marriage. She knows now how pathetic that sounds, how naive. But desperation makes fools of us all, and Kat was desperate. She was 14 weeks pregnant, trapped in a prenuptial agreement that left her with almost nothing, watching the father of her child build a life with another woman. Maybe she thought if she confronted him, he'd realize what he was losing. Maybe seeing her vulnerable, pregnant, scared would wake something up in him. Maybe the baby would be the thing that saved them. On Friday evening, she planned everything carefully. She wore the blue dress from their honeymoon in Santorini. She had Chef Michael prepare their wedding anniversary menu. She set out candles, put on soft music. She practiced what she'd say in the mirror. Julian, I know about Vanessa, but we're having a baby. We can get past this. We can go to counseling. We can rebuild. Julian came home at 7 o'clock early for him, but he was distracted, checking his phone constantly. Julian, Kat said, her voice careful, can we talk? I made your favorite. Not tonight, Catherine, he said, barely looking at her. I have an early flight to Miami tomorrow. Art Basel. Important clients. Can I come with you? The words came out more desperate than she'd intended. We haven't traveled together in over a year. His expression turned sharp. It's a work trip, not a vacation. You'd be bored. His phone buzzed on the counter. Kat saw the text notification before he could grab it. Can't wait for this weekend, handsome. I bought something special to show you. The air left Kat's lungs. Julian, she said, her voice shaking. Are you having an affair? He froze. His back was to her. The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only 10 seconds. When he turned around, his face was carefully neutral. What are you talking about? I found charges, Kat said. Hotels, jewelry I never received, a gallery called Sterling. He cut her off, his voice controlled but angry. Are you accusing me of something, Catherine? I just want the truth. The truth? His laugh was harsh. The truth is I work 80-hour weeks building an empire. The truth is every dinner, every trip, every charge is for business. If you don't understand how corporate development works, that's not my problem. But the hotels, clients, investors, networking. He stepped closer, his voice turning condescending. Jesus, Catherine, is this the pregnancy hormones? You're being paranoid, and frankly, it's embarrassing. Kat felt her certainty waver. But you saw bills for business expenses. That's all. His voice softened in a way that made her skin crawl. Look, I know pregnancy is stressful. Your body is changing. Hormones are making you emotional, but you can't start seeing conspiracies everywhere. You're going to drive yourself crazy. He touched her shoulder, the first physical contact in weeks. I'm worried about you, he said, his voice dripping with false concern. Maybe you should see someone, a therapist. This level of paranoia isn't healthy for you or the baby. I'll pay for it, obviously. And here's the terrible thing. Kat almost believed him. Almost let herself think she was crazy, that the hormones were making her irrational, that she'd imagined the evidence that was currently hidden in her sunroom. I'm sorry, she heard herself say. You're right. I'm just scared. About being a good mother, about everything changing. Of course you are, he said, like she was a child. It's natural, but you need to trust me. I'm taking care of everything. I always do. He kissed her forehead. Then he left to pack for his trip to Miami, which they both knew wasn't really Miami. Kat stood in the dining room, the romantic dinner cooling on the table, and felt the last piece of her self-respect die. He'd looked her in the eye and lied, and then he'd made her apologize for catching him in the lie. Later that night, alone in the master bedroom, Kat stared at the ceiling and faced the truth. He would never admit it. He would never stop. She couldn't save this marriage because there was nothing left to save. The man she'd married, if he'd ever really existed, was gone. What remained was a stranger who saw her as an obstacle to be managed, a system to be controlled. And she was carrying his child. The next morning, Saturday, Julian left for his trip. Kat sat in her sunroom, staring at the photographs the investigator had provided, feeling hopeless. Maria entered with tea and sat beside her without asking permission. Mrs. Kat, she said gently, There's something I need to show you. She handed Kat a sealed envelope, heavy cream stationery, a wax seal with an ornate letter A, handwriting that read, "To my son's wife, open only in event of his moral failing." "What is this?" Kat asked. "Mr. Richard gave this to me before he died," Maria said quietly. "2 years ago, he made me promise to give it to you if Julian ever betrayed the Ashford name." Kat's hands shook as she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in elegant script. "My dear daughter-in-law, if you are reading this, my worst fears about my son have come to pass. Julian was not always the man he has become. There was a time when he had potential for goodness, for humility. But power corrupts, and I fear I corrupted him by giving him too much too soon. I built the Ashford fortune from nothing. I remember being poor. I remember struggle. Julian has never known hunger, never known failure, and I fear this has made him believe he is entitled to everything he desires, regardless of the cost to others. When I insisted on the prenuptial agreement, it was not to protect my money. It was to protect you. Buried within that document, which I'm certain Julian never fully read, is Clause 19, the fidelity protection provision. I put it there as insurance, as a test of his character. If he has failed that test, if he has betrayed you while you carry his child, then you have the legal right and moral authority to invoke that clause. You will need an attorney. I recommend Marcus Wolfe. His contact information is enclosed. Marcus lost his daughter to a man like the one I fear Julian has become. He will understand. He will help you. Do not feel guilty for using this clause. I put it there specifically for this purpose. My son needs to learn that actions have consequences, that people are not possessions, that fatherhood is a privilege, not a right. Protect yourself. Protect your child. Julian will survive this. He has my name, my connections, my training. But you will need this protection. I am sorry I did not do more while I lived to prevent this moment. I hope this letter and the legal safeguard I built into that prenup can be a small redemption for my failures as a father. With respect and regret, Richard Ashford, P.S., page 73, Article 12, Clause 19. Read it carefully. Kat read the letter 3 times. Her hands trembled so badly the paper shook. "Richard knew," she whispered. "Julian's father knew this might happen?" "Mr. Richard was a hard man," Maria said, "but he believed in honor. He saw something in Julian he didn't like, the ambition without conscience. He tried to warn him." Kat stood on shaking legs and walked to the safe in her closet. Inside was her copy of the prenuptial agreement, 217 pages of dense legal language she'd signed 6 years ago without truly reading. She flipped to page 73. Article 12, Clause 19, Fidelity Protection Provision. Should the husband engage in extramarital relations during his wife's pregnancy with a legitimate Ashford heir, said actions demonstrate moral unfitness to steward family assets and fulfill paternal responsibilities. In such event, to protect the unborn child from financial instability and moral hazard created by the father's failure of character, controlling voting interest in the Ashford Family Trust shall immediately transfer to the mother, to be held in stewardship until said child reaches age 25. This provision may be invoked upon A. Documented proof of infidelity, and B. Formal written invocation filed by the wife with family attorneys. Signed, Julian Marcus Ashford, Catherine Elizabeth Ashford, Richard Thomas Ashford, Trustee. Kat read it once, twice, 3 times. Then she started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who'd been drowning and just found air. It was hysterical and desperate, and filled with something that might have been hope. "I can invoke this," she said. "I have proof. I can take control of the trust. I can divorce him and not be poor. The baby and I will be okay. We'll be more than okay." For the first time in weeks, Kat smiled. A real smile. She imagined it. A small apartment in Boston, raising her baby near Grace. Freedom, peace, safety. No more pretending, no more performing, no more Julian. She called Grace. "I found something, a way out. I'm going to be okay." Grace started crying with relief. "Oh, thank God. When are you leaving?" "I need to talk to the lawyer first," Kat said. "But soon. Maybe Christmas. I'll come home for Christmas and just stay." Kat allowed herself to hope. It lasted exactly 36 hours. Sunday evening, Julian returned from Miami. Kat heard him in the foyer, greeting Maria, his voice cheerful in a way that made her stomach turn. She was in the master bedroom reading Richard's letter for the 10th time when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept. Mrs. Ashford? A woman's voice, smooth, cold, confident. This is Vanessa Sterling. Kat's stomach dropped. How did you get this number? Julian left his phone at my place last night. I took yours from his contacts. We need to talk, woman to woman. Kat's hand moved protectively to her belly. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. Vanessa's voice was calm, almost bored. I'm calling as a courtesy because I'm not a monster. Julian is planning to divorce you. He's filing in 3 weeks. His attorney is Robert Patterson. You can verify this if you don't believe me. Kat opened Julian's shared calendar on her phone with shaking hands. There it was, Thursday, December 15th, 2 post-meridium, our Patterson consultation. He's been planning this for 2 months, Vanessa continued, since before you even knew you were pregnant. Why are you telling me this? Kat managed to ask. Because I want you to know it's over. He's choosing me. And before you get any ideas about fighting this in court, you should know something else. Kat waited, her heart hammering. I'm pregnant too. 11 weeks. He knows. He's thrilled. This is the baby he wants, Catherine. Yours was an accident. A mistake he's trying to fix. Kat couldn't breathe. You're lying. Am I? Ask him about the dinner at Maria 3 weeks ago. Ask him what we celebrated. Ask him about the ultrasound photo in his wallet. Kat remembered. 3 weeks ago, Julian had come home happy, unusual, humming. She'd asked what put him in a good mood. He'd said it was just a good day at the office. He's going to offer you the prenup payout, Vanessa. Vanessa said. $5 million. Take it. Disappear. Raise your child quietly. Because if you fight this, I have resources too. And I will make your life hell. Then the words that made Kat's blood run cold. One more thing. He's claiming the baby might not be his. What? Kat whispered. He's going to demand a paternity test. Drag it out. By the time courts force him to acknowledge paternity, my baby will be born. First Ashford grandchild, the heir Julian actually wants. The call ended. Kat sat frozen for a full minute. Then she ran to the bathroom and vomited. 20 minutes later, still shaking, Kat called Grace. That bastard, Grace said when Kat explained. Okay, it's okay. You come here tomorrow. Pack a bag and... In the background, Kat heard Tom's voice. Grace, we need to talk. Not now, Tom, my sister, but great. Now, so... There was a pause, muffled voices. Then Grace came back on the line, her voice breaking. Kat, I'm so sorry. Tom lost his job last week. His company did layoffs. We're going to lose the house. We're moving in with Mom next month. Kat felt the floor drop out from under her. Oh no. Grace, I'm so sorry. I can't take you in. Grace was crying now. I wanted to. God, I wanted to, but Mom's place is a 1-bedroom and assisted living. And we're looking at apartments, but with Tom unemployed, no one will rent to us with 4 people and a baby on the way. I can't, Kat. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Kat said automatically. I understand. No, it's not okay. You need help and I can't give it to you. Grace, breathe. You have to take care of your family. I'll figure something out. But Kat had no idea what. Her escape plan, the small apartment in Boston, her sister's spare room, all of it vanished like smoke. The next morning, Kat called Marcus Wolf, the attorney from Richard's letter. She explained everything. The affair, her pregnancy, Vanessa's pregnancy, Julian's plan to file first, the paternity challenge threat. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mrs. Ashford, Marcus finally said, I need to be brutally honest with you. This is worse than you think. How can it be worse? If Julian files first and claims potential paternity fraud, he can drag this out for years. Paternity tests during pregnancy are possible but not mandatory. He can demand to wait until after birth, then demand DNA testing, then appeal the results. With his money, he can keep you in legal limbo for 2-3 years. But Clause 19 requires proof of infidelity and formal invocation. If he files first, he'll claim the clause is punitive and unenforceable. He'll tie it up in litigation. And here's the worst part. By the time courts untangle this, Vanessa's child will be born first. If she's really pregnant, her child could claim senior status as firstborn Ashford heir. But I'm his wife. You're his wife he's divorcing. Vanessa's child, if born first, and if Julian acknowledges paternity immediately, could have legal precedent in certain contexts. So I lose everything? Kat's voice was small. Not necessarily. But you need to act now, before he fells, before Vanessa's baby is born. We have maybe 3 weeks. What do I do? Fight back, harder than he's fighting, smarter than he's expecting. Kat hung up and sat in silence. 3 catastrophes in 24 hours. Vanessa pregnant. Grace unable to help. The legal timeline closing in. She was 14 weeks pregnant, trapped, and running out of time. That night, Monday night, Kat sat in the nursery she'd been decorating. Pale yellow walls, a white crib, the rocking chair from her childhood, stuffed animals from Grace. She looked at the ultrasound photo on the wall. Then she looked at the window. 47 floors up. What if she just disappeared? Julian would get his freedom. Vanessa would get her family. No one would have to fight. No child would grow up in a war zone. She walked to the balcony door, opened it. Cold December air rushed in. She stepped out onto the balcony. The city glittered below, indifferent and vast. She put her hand on the cold metal railing. Maybe everyone would be better off. Mrs. Kat, Maria's voice panicked. The housekeeper rushed onto the balcony, grabbed Kat's arm, pulled her inside. What are you doing out here? It's freezing. Kat's tears came then, hot and unstoppable. I don't know what to do, Maria. I have nowhere to go. No money. A baby coming. And a husband who wants to erase us both. Maria wrapped a blanket around her, made her sit. You listen to me. You are Catherine Elizabeth Hayes. You graduated from Yale. You were a museum curator. You were someone before you met him. You can be someone after him. I'm so tired of being strong. Then be weak tonight. Cry tonight. Break tonight. But tomorrow you fight. Maria made tea, told Kat about her daughter Rosa, who'd had a husband like Julian. Charming, successful, cruel. He'd left her when their daughter was 6 months old, called Rosa boring, said motherhood made her unattractive. What did she do? Kat asked. She cried for a month. Then she enrolled in pastry school at night, worked 2 jobs, slept 4 hours, raised Isabella alone. Now Rosa owns 3 bakeries in Queens. Isabella just started college at Columbia. How? One day at a time, one decision at a time, and by accepting help when people offered it. No one's offering help, Kat said. I am. Mr. Richard gave me money for exactly this, to help you. And Mr. Wolf will help you. You're not alone, Mrs. Kat. You just feel alone. Kat looked at her belly, felt a flutter. The baby's first kick. A presence, a person, someone counting on her. You're real, Kat whispered to her belly. You're counting on me. I can't give up on you. To Maria, call Mr. Wolf. Tell him I'm ready to fight. Maria smiled. Now you sound like a survivor. That night, Catherine Hayes, who'd spent 6 years disappearing into the role of Mrs. Julian Ashford, began to remember who she used to be and who she could become. Tuesday morning, Kat walked into the offices of Wolf and Associates. The building was old Manhattan, all dark wood and leather-bound law books. It smelled like power and old money and justice. Marcus Wolf's office was on the top floor. When Kat entered, the first thing she saw was a photograph on his desk. A young woman in her early 20s, bright smile, graduation cap, and gown. Marcus saw her notice it. My daughter, Anna. She's beautiful, Kat said. She was. The past tense hung in the air. Kat sat down slowly. Marcus gestured to the photo. Anna was 24, brilliant, graduating from Columbia Law, following in my footsteps. She'd married a tech entrepreneur. Everyone thought they were the perfect couple. Kat already knew where this was going. Her hand moved to her belly. He cheated on her, Marcus continued, his voice flat with old pain. Got his assistant pregnant. Anna was pregnant too, 6 months along. She tried to leave him, but the prenup, I'd urged her to sign it. Thought it was standard. It left her with almost nothing. What happened? Kat whispered. Marcus's jaw tightened. She felt trapped, ashamed, scared. One night she took too many pills. She and the baby both died. Kat's tears fell without permission. I'm so sorry. Her husband married the assistant 3 months later. He's now worth $800 million. Every time I see his name in Forbes, I want to burn the magazine. Marcus looked at Kat directly. Maria mentioned you were on your balcony, alone at night. Kat looked down. I couldn't save Anna, Marcus said, his voice fierce. But I can save you, if you'll let me. This was why Richard had sent her here. Marcus Wolf didn't just practice law. He waged war against men who destroyed women and called it business. Richard Ashford left me a letter, Kat said. He said you would help. Richard was a client, a friend. When he called me 2 years ago and asked me to draft Clause 19 for his son's prenup, I asked why. He said his son was becoming a man he didn't recognize. He needed insurance for whoever was brave enough to marry him. Marcus pulled out Kat's prenuptial agreement and spread it across his mahogany desk. This clause is brilliant, he said. Richard wrote it himself, insisted on the exact wording. Most prenups protect the wealthy spouse. This one protects the pregnant spouse. It's almost unheard of. Can it work? Kat asked. If we execute it perfectly. But Julian will fight. He has Patterson and Associates. They're sharks. They'll claim the clause is unconscionable, punitive, voidable. Can they win? Not if we move first. The clause requires 2 things, proof of infidelity and your formal invocation. You have the proof. He gestured to the private investigator's photos Kat had brought. Now you need to invoke. How? You sign a declaration. I file it with the Ashford Family Trust Board and with the New York State Supreme Court. The moment it's filed, the transfer is automatic and immediate. Julian will know. Not if we time it perfectly. Marcus leaned forward. Tell me, Mrs. Ashford, how good of an actress are you? Maria joined them at Kat's insistence. Together, they planned. We need Julian to think he's won, Marcus said, that you're broken, defeated. He already thinks that, Kat said quietly. We need him to be certain of it, comfortable, celebrating. Maria spoke up. He's planning something with Vanessa, Friday night. I heard him on the phone, a dinner reservation at Oro, 8:30 post-meridium. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Perfect. That's when we strike. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. First, Kat would perform defeat. She'd call Julian, crying, admitting she knew about Vanessa, begging him not to take her baby. She'd make him believe she was broken. Second, Julian would relax, plan his celebration, let his guard down. Third, Marcus would prepare the invocation documents. Everything ready for instant electronic filing. Fourth, the execution. Friday, 8:47, post-meridium. While Julian raised champagne with Vanessa, Kat would sign the invocation in Marcus's office. The transfer would be instant and irrevocable. What about Vanessa's baby? Kat asked. If she's really pregnant, that child is innocent in all this. Marcus nodded, respecting the question. Once you have controlling interest, you also control child support determinations through the family trust. Julian will have to come to you for money to support Vanessa's child. You're not trying to hurt an innocent baby. You're protecting your child from a father who sees children as chess pieces. Kat thought about this. Even in her anger, even in her pain, she couldn't punish an innocent child for their father's sins. I'll make sure both children are provided for, she said, but I won't let Julian use his money to manipulate either one of them. Marcus studied her. You're worried about being fair to him, after everything. I'm worried about who I become if I'm not. He nodded. Good. Hold on to that. Revenge without conscience turns you into the thing you're fighting against. They spent 3 hours rehearsing. Marcus played Julian. Kat practiced sounding broken while actually being strong, sounding defeated while planning victory. I can't fight you, she said, her voice trembling perfectly. You have all the power, all the money. I just want what's best for the baby. After the third attempt, Marcus leaned back. That's perfect. You almost made me believe you were giving up. Kat smiled. It was cold. Good, because Julian will absolutely believe it. He wants to believe I'm weak. It confirms everything he thinks about me. When will you call him? Maria asked. Tonight. I'll catch him with Vanessa. Make it more effective. That evening, 9:30 post-meridium, Kat knew Julian was at Vanessa's loft. Maria had confirmed it. Kat called his cell. He sounded surprised, slightly annoyed. Catherine? Is something wrong? Is it the baby? Kat forced tears into her voice. I got a call. From Vanessa. Long pause. What did she say? His voice was guarded. She told me about her pregnancy, about you filing for divorce. Julian, is it true? He said nothing. Just tell me the truth, Kat begged. Please. I need to hear it from you. Julian sighed. Catherine, I was going to tell you. I was waiting for the right time. How long? She let her voice break. How long have you been planning this? It's complicated. You love her? A pause. I care about her. She understands my world in a way that... He stopped himself. In a way I don't, Kat finished for him. You're a good person, Catherine, but we want different things. What about our baby? She whispered. I'll support the child financially. You'll have the prenup payout. $5 million is more than enough. Kat had to dig her nails into her palm to stay in character. I don't want your money. I want to know if you want our baby at all. His answer was ice. I want my future. Vanessa and I, we're building something. Her child is part of that future. There it was, the truth laid bare. And ours isn't, Kat said. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Now came the performance, the surrender. I can't fight you, Julian. Her voice was small, defeated. You have all the power, all the money, the lawyers. I just don't want this to get ugly. For the baby's sake. She could hear his relief through the phone. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Can we handle this quietly? Without a big court battle? Of course, that's what I want too. Patterson will draw up clean documents. You'll be taken care of. Thank you, Kat said, and she almost choked on the words. I'm glad we can do this like adults. One last manipulation. Julian, do you think after the baby is born, we could try to be friends for our child? Of course, Catherine. You'll always be the mother of my child. We'll work something out. When she hung up, Kat looked at Maria, who'd been listening. Her tears dried up instantly. Her voice turned to ice. He actually believed me. Of course he did, Maria said. He's been underestimating you for 6 years. Kat looked at the calendar. Friday was in 3 days. Let's destroy him, she said. And for the first time in months, Catherine Hayes smiled like she meant it. Wednesday through Friday morning, Kat gave the performance of her life. She moved through the penthouse like a ghost. She stopped wearing makeup, letting the dark circles under her eyes show. She wore oversized sweaters that hid her pregnancy. She picked at her meals, ate almost nothing. She looked exhausted, defeated, broken. Julian noticed. Of course he noticed. But he said nothing. He was too busy planning his celebration. She heard him whistling in the shower Wednesday morning. She caught him taking calls with Vanessa right in front of her, not even bothering to hide anymore. Thursday evening, she overheard him planning a weekend getaway to Aspen. I'll have Patterson send over the papers next week, he told Kat over breakfast Friday morning. You'll want to read them before you sign. Okay, Kat said quietly, not meeting his eyes. Julian actually smiled at her, touched her shoulder as he left for the office. He thought he'd already won. Maria, meanwhile, played her role perfectly. She confirmed the Oro reservation for 8:30 post-meridium Friday night, table for 2. She overheard Julian on the phone with his divorce attorney. Catherine's being cooperative. This will be easy. She recorded him telling Vanessa, Friday we celebrate, the beginning of our life together. And she reported everything to Marcus. Marcus, in his downtown office, worked around the clock. He assembled a forensic accountant team. He prepared digital transfer protocols. He set up a secure server for instant filing. He coordinated with the Ashford Trust Board secretary, a woman who'd been loyal to Richard and despised what Julian had become. Everything was ready for Friday at 8:47 post-meridium. Friday morning, Julian was in high spirits. "I'm having dinner with the Tokyo investors tonight," he told Kat at breakfast, the lie rolling smoothly off his tongue. "Don't wait up." "Okay," Kat said. He actually hummed as he left. That afternoon, Kat showered and dressed carefully. Simple navy dress, hair pulled back, her mother's small gold necklace, sensible flats. She looked at herself in the mirror and whispered, "You can do this." To her belly, "For you. All of this is for you." At 4 o'clock, Maria helped her pack a small bag. "Just essentials. You'll come back for the rest when the time is right," Maria said. "Am I doing the right thing?" Kat asked. "Are you protecting your child?" "Yes." "Then you're doing what any mother would do." At 6:30 post-meridium, Kat arrived at Marcus Wolf's office. The team was assembled. Forensic accountant at his laptop, transfer codes ready, legal assistant at the court filing portal, Marcus at the head of the conference table, the document requiring Kat's signature in front of him. The document was titled Formal Invocation of Fidelity Protection Provision, Article 12, Clause 19, Ashford Prenuptial Agreement. Attached were 47 pages of evidence, photos, bank statements, the lease agreement for Vanessa's apartment, credit card receipts, a timeline of the affair, Maria's witness statement, the private investigator's full report. It was irrefutable. Kat stared at the signature line. "I, Catherine Elizabeth Ashford, hereby formally invoke—" "Once you sign this, everything changes," Marcus said quietly. "No going back." "What happens to him?" Kat asked. "Bank accounts frozen pending asset review. Corporate credentials revoked. Board control transfers to you immediately. Real estate titles transfer. Investment portfolios lock. He'll have access to nothing." "Will he be okay?" "Eventually." Marcus looked at her with something like respect. "You're still worried about him, after everything." "I'm worried about who I become if I don't worry." "He'll survive," Marcus said. "He has his intelligence, his connections, his education. He'll rebuild something, just not an empire. And he'll learn that people aren't possessions." Kat looked at the clock. 8:30 post-meridium. "He's at dinner right now, with her." "Perfect," Marcus said. At Oro Restaurant, Julian and Vanessa sat at their intimate corner table. The Manhattan skyline glittered behind them through floor-to-ceiling windows. Vanessa wore crimson Valentino, her hand resting on her small baby bump. Julian ordered a $3,200 bottle of Dom Perignon Rosé. "Tonight we celebrate the future," Julian said. "Did she take it well?" Vanessa asked. "Catherine?" Julian smiled, smug and satisfied. "Better than expected. She practically begged me to be friends for the baby. Can you imagine?" Vanessa laughed. "Poor thing, she really thought she could keep you." She never understood that marriage is a strategic partnership, not a romance novel. The sommelier arrived with the champagne, presented the label. Julian nodded approval. At 8:45 post-meridium, the cork popped. Pink champagne went into crystal flutes. "What should we toast to?" Vanessa asked. "To new beginnings, to building the life I actually want, to freedom from obligations." At 8:47 post-meridium, they raised their glasses. "To us," Julian said. "To us," Vanessa echoed. The glasses touched with a crystal clink. They drank. "God, that's good," Julian said. He had no idea that at that exact moment, 7 miles away, his entire world was being systematically dismantled. In Marcus Wolf's office, Kat sat with pen in hand. The clock showed 8:46 post-meridium. Marcus looked at her across the table. "We're synchronized with his dinner reservation. Our contact at Oro confirms they just sat down." Kat stared at the document. She thought of Julian's voice saying efficient. She thought of dinners alone. She thought of the Santorini honeymoon note. "You make me want to be better." She thought of the balcony. She thought of her baby's first kick. She thought of Anna Wolf's photograph on Marcus's desk. "I'm ready," she said. "You're certain?" "He made me certain when he asked if I wanted tears, so here's my answer." At 8:46 post-meridium, Kat signed her name. Firm, clear, no hesitation. At 8:47 post-meridium, Marcus nodded to the forensic accountant. Transfer codes authenticated. Systems green-lit. Authorization confirmed. Execute, Marcus said. The accountant hit enter, and as Julian's champagne touched his lips, his world ended. 8:47 and 3 seconds post-meridium, Julian's corporate email credentials were revoked. 8:47 and 8 seconds. Board voting rights transferred to Catherine Elizabeth Ashford. 8:47 and 15 seconds. Primary banking access frozen. 8:47 and 22 seconds. Real estate titles began transferring. 8:47 and 30 seconds. Investment accounts locked. 8:47 and 38 seconds. All credit cards canceled. 8:47 and 45 seconds. Company phone service suspended. Digital dismantling at 300 clicks per second. In the restaurant, Julian took another sip of champagne, completely unaware that he no longer owned the company he'd inherited, the buildings he'd acquired, the accounts he'd built, or even the phone in his pocket. He tasted victory. It was actually the taste of his own ruin. Kat sat in Marcus's office and watched the transfer complete. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She just placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "You're safe now. I promise you're safe." At 9:30 post-meridium, Julian and Vanessa were finishing dinner at Oro. Wagyu beef, truffle risotto, more champagne, creme brulee for dessert. The check arrived. $2,847. Julian handed his Black American Express to the waiter without looking at it. The legendary Centurion card, symbol of unlimited wealth. The card that had never in 15 years been declined. The waiter returned, his face carefully apologetic. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Ashford. The card was declined." Julian looked up, certain there was a mistake. "That's impossible. Run it again." The waiter shifted uncomfortably. "We've tried 3 times, sir." Other diners were starting to notice. Julian felt heat creeping up his neck. "Use this one," he said, handing over a platinum visa. The waiter returned. "This one as well, sir." Julian tried 4 more cards. American Express Gold, Chase Sapphire Reserve, Citibank Prestige, MasterCard Black. All declined. Vanessa's smile was fading, her champagne buzz evaporating into something that looked like concern. "Some kind of fraud alert," Julian said with a tight laugh. "Happens when you travel. I'll call the bank." He dialed his private banking concierge line. The number he'd had for a decade. The one that connected directly to a personal banker who knew his name, his preferences, his every financial need. He got put on hold. Elevator music played in his ear. Julian Ashford, billionaire CEO, listening to hold music like a common person. Finally, a nervous junior agent came on the line. "Mr. Ashford, yes, I see the issue here. There appears to be a security hold on all your accounts. A directive was issued from the primary trust administrator." "I am the primary trust administrator," Julian said. "Our records show a change in status effective 8:47 post-meridium this evening. Sir, the new primary trust administrator is listed as Catherine Elizabeth Ashford." Silence. Julian's face drained of color. "What?" The word came out as a whisper. "Would you like me to connect you with our legal department, sir?" Julian hung up. His hands were shaking. Vanessa was watching him now, her expression shifting from concern to something else. Assessment? Calculation. "Julian, what's wrong?" "Catherine," he said numbly. "She did something. I don't know what, but something's happened." He tried calling his CFO. Straight to voicemail. His personal lawyer. Voicemail. His executive assistant. "The number you have reached is no longer in service." It was Friday night. Everyone had gone home for the weekend. He was completely cut off. Julian threw $900 in cash on the table, nearly everything he was carrying. "We need to go, now." Outside the restaurant, Julian's town car wasn't waiting. The company car. Service suspended. They took a taxi. The humiliation of it made Julian's jaw clench. The ride to Fifth Avenue was silent and tense. Julian's mind raced. This couldn't be legal. It was a mistake, a glitch, something he could fix with a phone call, with his lawyers, with his power. Except his power was evaporating by the second. They arrived at his building. Julian strode toward the entrance like he owned it. Because he did own it, didn't he? Michael, the doorman who'd greeted him by name for 6 years, stepped in front of the door. I'm sorry, Mr. Ashford. Michael looked miserable. I can't let you up. Julian stared at him. What are you talking about, Michael? I live here. My instructions are clear, sir, from the new primary leaseholder, Mrs. Ashford. You're not on the resident access list. Reality crashed into Julian like a physical force. This wasn't a mistake. This was an attack. That's my apartment. Julian's voice rose. My building. I own that property. Building ownership transferred at 8:47 post-meridium this evening, sir. My manager received the documentation. I'm very sorry. A small crowd was forming, other residents stopping to watch, whispering, pointing. Julian's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your belongings are being packed and will be placed in a storage unit in Queens. A week at the Hampton Inn has been prepaid for you. After that, you're on your own. Here is my attorney's contact information for all future correspondence. Do not attempt to contact me directly. Catherine, attached was a business card. Marcus Wolf, attorney at law. Julian stood frozen, his mind trying to process the impossible. A second text arrived. This one had an attachment, a photograph of the prenuptial agreement. Page 73, clause 19, highlighted in yellow. And a handwritten note in the margin, in his father's distinctive script. Julian, if you're reading this, you failed the test. You've become the man I feared you'd become. I'm sorry, Dad. His father, his own father had built this trap, and Julian had walked right into it. Julian, Vanessa's voice cut through his shock. I think I should go. He turned to her, desperate. Vanessa, wait. This is temporary. I'll fight this. My lawyers, your lawyers that you can't call, your lawyers you can't pay. I have assets, real assets. This is just a legal maneuver. Vanessa looked at him, really looked at him, saw a man powerless, humiliated, penniless, a man who was no longer useful. You told me Catherine was weak, she said coldly, that she'd never fight. You said she was handled. She was. She called me crying, begging. She played you, Julian, and you fell for it. Vanessa stepped to the curb and hailed a taxi. What about the baby? Julian called after her. Your baby? She got into the taxi, window half down. My baby will be fine. I'll figure something out, like I always do. But I thought you thought I loved you. She laughed, sharp and bitter. I loved your money, Julian. Your power, your name. What are you without those things? The taxi pulled away. Julian stood alone on the sidewalk outside his own building. Other residents walked past, averting their eyes. Michael the doorman looked away, embarrassed for him. Rain started to fall. Julian Ashford, in his $15,000 Tom Ford suit, stood in the rain with nowhere to go and no one to call. He had nothing. He was nothing. 2 hours later, Julian sat in a $90 per night Hampton Inn room in Queens. The room was generic. Beige walls, twin bed, faint smell of industrial cleaner. The TV was bolted to the dresser. The towels were thin. 6 hours ago, he'd been drinking $3,200 champagne. Now he was here. His phone rang. Marcus Wolf. Mr. Ashford, I'm calling as a courtesy. My client, Mrs. Ashford, would like to speak with you. In person. Once. She'll be at the penthouse for the next hour. If you'd like closure, this is your chance. Put her on, Julian demanded. In person. Or not at all. Your choice. The call ended. Julian took another taxi back to Fifth Avenue, paid with his dwindling cash. Michael the doorman looked uncomfortable but let him through. She said you could go up, Mr. Ashford. Just this once. Julian entered the penthouse like a stranger entering a museum. Everything looked the same, but felt different. The art he'd collected, the furniture he'd chosen, the view he'd paid for. All of it still here, but no longer his. Kat stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the city lights. She wore white, a simple dress, her mother's necklace. Her 18-week baby bump was visible. She looked powerful in a way he'd never seen before. Catherine, we need to talk about this rationally. I'm not Catherine anymore, she said calmly. I'm taking back my maiden name. I'm Kat Hayes now. This is insane. That clause was never meant to be enforced. Then your father shouldn't have written it in his own handwriting. Julian tried another approach. My father was old. He didn't understand modern business. He understood exactly who you were becoming. Better than I did. Julian's control started to crack. You can't do this. I'll fight you. I have the best lawyers. That you can't pay. Your retainer accounts were frozen at 8:49 post-meridium. Hopefully the board will never stand for this. I am the board. Controlling interest, remember? They voted you out as CEO at an emergency meeting at 10 post-meridium tonight. Unanimous. Well, almost. You would have voted no, but you weren't there. Julian felt the ground shifting under him. He tried the tactic that always worked. Remorse. Kat, please, this is my life, my company. I built this. With whose money? Your father's. You inherited everything at 25. You've never built anything from nothing. You've just managed not to lose what was handed to you. That stung because it was true. Julian tried softer. I made mistakes. I know that, but we can fix this. Counseling. I'll end things with Vanessa. Kat laughed. It was sharp and bitter. You think I want you back? Julian, I don't want your apologies. I don't want your promises. I don't want you. Then what do you want? I want you to understand what you did. Kat stepped closer, her voice fierce. Not just the affair. That's almost quaint, common. No, what you did was worse. Catherine, you called our baby efficient. You reduced our child to a polling advantage, a PR opportunity. I was under stress. You asked me if I wanted tears when I told you I was pregnant. You mocked the idea that you should feel anything. And then you went to her, celebrated with her, planned a future with her baby while ours was just an inconvenience. Julian had no defense. You didn't see me as a person, Kat continued, tears in her eyes but fury in her voice. I was a system, a function. I managed your home, curated your art, organized your image. And when the system asked for basic human dignity, you acted like it was malfunctioning. That's not fair. You gaslit me. Kat's voice rose. I came to you with proof of your affair, and you made me feel crazy. Told me it was pregnancy hormones, that I needed therapy. You made me doubt my own sanity. Julian opened his mouth, closed it. You were so busy trying to break me, Kat said quietly, that you never noticed I was already broken. You did that every dinner alone, every charity gala where you took calls during my speech. Every morning I woke up to an empty bed. She stepped even closer. Do you know where I was 2 weeks ago? Monday night? Julian shook his head. I was on our balcony, 47 floors up. It was raining, and I thought about how easy it would be to just step off, end the pain, end the humiliation and the loneliness. Julian felt genuine shock. Catherine, the only thing that stopped me was this baby, your baby, the one you don't want, the one you called efficient. She kicked for the first time that night, and I realized I can't leave her alone with you. I have to protect her from you. Kat's tears streamed down her face, but she wasn't weak. She was furious. So no, Julian, I don't want you back. I'm taking your money, but I don't want it. What I want is for you to feel what I felt. Julian made one last desperate attempt. You can't do this. I built that empire. Kat looked him dead in the eye. And I inherited it. Turns out treating your wife like property works both ways. Congratulations, Julian. You played yourself. The silence was absolute. Julian had no response. You have 30 minutes to pack one suitcase, Kat said. Maria has prepared a list of personal items you may take. Nothing else. Then you leave. Where do I go? His voice was small. That's no longer my concern. Julian dropped to his knees, literally, this man who'd never begged for anything in his life. Please, I'm begging you, Kat, please, I'll do anything. Kat looked down at him. Do you remember Santarori, our honeymoon? He looked confused. What? You left me a note. You make me want to be a better man. I meant it. I know you did. That's the saddest part. You were better once, or you wanted to be. And then you decided being better was too hard. Being good was too boring. Being faithful was too limiting. Kat picked up her purse and walked toward the door. I loved who you could have been. I mourned that man for years. But he's dead, Julian. If he ever really existed at all. What about our child? Don't I get to see? You'll have court-appointed visitation. 2 hours every other Sunday. Supervised. My lawyer will send details. Supervised? You think I'd hurt? I think you'd hurt her without meaning to. With your words, your indifference, your efficiency. So yes, supervised. That's not fair. Neither is calling a baby efficient. Neither is gaslighting your pregnant wife. Neither is celebrating with your mistress while your wife contemplates jumping off a balcony. But here we are. Kat's expression wasn't triumphant. It wasn't vengeful. It was just sad and tired and done. Goodbye, Julian. She left. Julian was alone in the penthouse that used to be his. 29 minutes left to pack. He looked around at the empire he'd inherited. I'm Billionaire. The life he'd built, the image he'd crafted, all of it gone. Because he'd called a baby efficient. Because he'd underestimated the quiet woman who'd loved him. Because his own father had known exactly what kind of man he'd become. Julian sat on the floor and, for the first time in 20 years, cried. 6 months later, June arrived in New York with golden light and the promise of new beginnings. Kat was in labor. The hospital room was bright, clean, filled with the controlled case of bringing life into the world. Grace held her hand, whispering encouragement. You're doing amazing, Grace said. One more push. The doctor, a kind woman in her 50s, smiled. I can see the head. She's almost here. Kat was exhausted. 18 hours of labor. Her body was screaming, but she was present, focused, strong. Is she okay? Kat gasped. Is the baby okay? She's perfect. One more big push, Kat. Kat pushed, and then the most beautiful sound in the world. A baby's cry, high and clear and alive. It's a girl, the doctor announced. Healthy, beautiful girl. The nurse placed the baby on Kat's chest. Tiny, perfect, screaming with the indignation of being thrust into the cold, bright world. Kat sobbed. Hi, baby girl, I'm your mama. Grace was crying too. She's perfect, Kat. Kat looked down at her daughter's scrunched face, her tiny fists, her shock of dark hair. Your name is Lily Grace Hayes, after your aunt, who never gave up on us. Later, when the room was quiet and the chaos had subsided, Kat sat alone with Lily. Golden hour light poured through the window, bathing them both in warmth. She whispered to her daughter, Your daddy, he's not a bad man. He's just a broken one. And I couldn't fix him. But I promise you this, you'll never feel unwanted. You'll never feel like a transaction. You'll know love that doesn't come with conditions. A knock on the door. The nurse poked her head in. Ms. Hayes, there's a Julian Ashford in the waiting room. Says he's the father. Should I? Kat took a deep breath. Tell him he can have 15 minutes. Supervised. You or another nurse stays in the room. You sure? She deserves to know her father, even if he's complicated. 15 minutes later, Julian entered. He looked different. Off-the-rack suit instead of Tom Ford. Hair not perfectly styled. No $80,000 watch. Lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. He saw Kat holding Lily and something in his expression cracked. She's beautiful, he said, his voice breaking. You can hold her for a few minutes. Julian approached like he was approaching something sacred and terrifying. He took Lily in his arms with awkward care. He looked at his daughter's face. Tears fell down his cheeks. I'm sorry for everything. I know that doesn't fix anything, but you're right, Kat said quietly. It doesn't. Can I be part of her life? Really part of it? That depends. On what? On whether you can love her without trying to own her. Whether you can show up for her even when it's inconvenient. Whether you can be the man your father hoped you'd become. Julian looked at Lily for a long time. I don't know if I can, but I want to try. Then try, but you don't get to try with me. You get supervised visits until she's 5. Then we'll reevaluate. That's harsh. That's fair. The nurse cleared her throat. I'm sorry, Mr. Ashford. Time's up. Julian carefully placed Lily back in Kat's arms. He looked at Kat. What you did, taking everything, part of me hates you for it. And part of me hates you for making it necessary. Are we ever going to be okay? The three of us? Kat looked at her daughter, then at the man who'd given her life. I don't know, ask me in 18 years. Julian left. Grace returned with coffee. How was it? Sad, Kat said. He looked smaller. Do you regret it? Taking everything? Kat thought for a long time. Samalbanum. I regret that it had to happen. I regret that he gave me no choice. But no, I don't regret protecting our daughter. Mom would be proud of you. Kat's eyes filled with tears. Would she? I destroyed a man's life. You saved your own and hers. Kat looked at Lily. People are going to say I'm a gold digger, that I trapped him with a pregnancy, that I'm vengeful. Let them talk. You know the truth. Do I? Kat's voice was quiet. What if I did become the villain? What if I turned into the thing I was fighting against? Did you? Grace asked. Kat thought. I don't know. I'm powerful now. I run $1 billion company. I control everything. Isn't that what he wanted? Control? But why do you want control? Kat looked at her daughter. To protect her. To make sure she never feels powerless. That's the difference. He wanted control for ego. You want it for love. Kat's phone buzzed. A news alert. Ashford Enterprises announces $50 million fund for domestic abuse survivors. CEO Catherine Hayes. Every woman deserves an escape plan. Grace read over her shoulder. You're using the money for good. Trying to. Every woman should have what Richard gave me. A way out. Kat looked out the hospital window at the New York skyline. The city that had been her prison was now her domain. But power, she was learning, was its own kind of cage. She thought about the balcony, about Clause 19, about Richard's letter, about Anna Wolf's photograph on Marcus's desk. People ask if I'm happy, she said to Grace. I tell them I'm free. I tell them I'm safe. I tell them my daughter will never be trapped like I was. She looked down at Lily, sleeping peacefully against her chest. But happy? I don't know yet. Maybe happy comes later, after the war, after the guilt, after I figure out who I am when I'm not performing for anyone. Grace squeezed her hand. You don't have to have all the answers today. No, Kat agreed, but I have to live with the questions. Over the next months, Kat rebuilt herself along with the company. She hired an all-female executive team. She pivoted Ashford Enterprises toward women-led startups and family advocacy. She created mentorship programs for single mothers. She funded domestic violence shelters. She never remarried. There were men who tried, attracted to her power or her money or her story. But Kat had learned the difference between being wanted and being valued. She chose solitude over compromise. Julian rebuilt too, in his own way. He got a job at a tech firm, middle management. He showed up for his supervised visits with Lily every other Sunday. He was awkward but present, imperfect but trying. Vanessa had a son, a healthy baby boy. When Kat learned this, she anonymously funded his college education. Not for Vanessa, not for Julian. For the innocent child who didn't choose his parents. Vanessa never knew who'd funded it. She and Kat never spoke again. Grace and Tom recovered from their financial crisis. Kat helped quietly, a down payment on a house, Tom's tuition for retraining, Grace's bakery business loan, family helping family. Maria retired at 60 with a pension Kat personally insured was generous. You saved my life, Kat told her. The least I can do is make sure your retirement is comfortable. Maria just smiled. You saved yourself, Mrs. Kat. I just opened the door. 5 years later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Kat sat in the sunroom of a different apartment, smaller than the penthouse but warm, filled with life. Lily's toys scattered on the floor. Children's books piled on the coffee table. Finger paintings taped to the windows. Lily, now 5 years old, was curled up in Kat's lap. Mama, tell me a story, she said. What kind of story? A princess story, but not a boring one. One where the princess saves herself. Kat smiled. She thought about the woman she'd been, the woman she'd become, the woman she was still becoming. Once upon a time, she began, there was a princess who lived in a very tall tower. As she told the story, she changed the ending. In her version, the princess didn't wait for rescue. She picked the lock. She climbed down the tower herself. She built her own kingdom. It wasn't a perfect ending. The princess was lonely sometimes. She was powerful but isolated. She'd won her freedom but lost her innocence. But she was free. And her daughter grew up knowing that love doesn't trap you, that kindness isn't weakness, that you can be both strong and sad, both powerful and uncertain. Lily fell asleep in her arms. Kat looked out the window at the city. Somewhere out there, Julian was having brunch with his girlfriend, a kind woman who worked in nonprofit and didn't care about his last name. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was running her gallery, successful in her own right. Somewhere out there, Marcus was helping another woman escape an impossible situation. And here in this sunlit room, Kat held her daughter and felt something close to peace. Not happiness. Not yet. Maybe never the uncomplicated happiness she dreamed of at 25. But something better. Something real. She'd destroyed a man's empire to save her daughter's soul. She'd become powerful to protect the powerless. She'd learned that sometimes the villain and the hero are the same person, just viewed from different angles. Her phone buzzed. A message from Julian. Lily was wonderful at our visit yesterday. She taught me to make a bird out of origami paper. I still have it on my desk. Thank you for giving me the chance to know her. I know I don't deserve it. Kat read the message, thought for a long moment, then replied, she deserves to know her father. We're working on it, one Sunday at a time. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe never, but humanity. The recognition that people are complicated, that Julian was both the man who'd called their baby efficient and the man who kept an origami bird on his desk, that she was both the victim who'd stood on that balcony and the victor who'd taken everything, that Lily deserved a father who tried, even if he failed sometimes, that Kat deserved to heal, even if she never forgot. 6 months later, Kat stood at a podium in front of 300 women, the first graduating class of the Ashford Foundation Leadership Program, single mothers who'd been given business training, childcare support, legal assistance, and seed funding. She looked at their faces, saw herself in each one, the exhaustion, the determination, the hope fighting through despair. They'll tell you that revenge is sweet, Kat said, that taking what's yours is power, that winning makes you whole. She paused. They're wrong. Revenge is complicated. Power is lonely. Winning just means you survived. The women leaned forward, listening. But survival, Kat continued, survival is everything because you can't build from ashes if you let yourself burn completely. You can't protect your children if you don't protect yourself first. You can't teach them strength if you won't claim your own. She looked down at her notes, looked back up at the faces. I didn't do this the right way. I did it the only way I could. And I live with that. The choices I made, the person I became, the man I destroyed to save myself and my daughter. A pause. Would I do it again? Yes. Do I wish I didn't have to? Every single day. She concluded, you will make impossible choices. You will become people you never thought you'd be. You will survive things that should have broken you. And when people ask if you're happy, you might not have an answer. But you'll have your life, your autonomy, your children's future, and some days that's enough. Some days that's everything. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, a young woman approached, 23, pregnant, determined. Ms. Hayes, I just want to say thank you. Your story, it gave me hope. Kat looked at her belly. How far along? 16 weeks? And the father? Gone. He said the baby would ruin his career. Kat's heart clenched. She saw herself in this girl's eyes. You're going to be okay, Kat said. It won't be easy. It won't be fair. But you're going to survive this, and your baby will know they were wanted. That's more than some children get. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Were you scared? Kat thought about the balcony, the prenup, the moment she signed her name. Terrified, she said honestly, but I was more scared of staying than leaving, and that made all the difference. That evening, Kat returned to her apartment. Lily was asleep in her room, watched over by the babysitter. Kat stood at the window, looking out at the city that had almost destroyed her. She thought about Julian's text from earlier. Lily said she wants to be a lawyer when she grows up. Like the one who helped her mommy. I thought you should know. Kat smiled. Marcus would love that. She thought about where she'd been 5 years ago. Pregnant, terrified, trapped. Standing on a balcony wondering if disappearing would be easier than fighting. She thought about where she was now. Powerful, successful, free, but also lonely, complex, forever changed. Was it worth it? She looked at Lily's door, heard her daughter's soft breathing. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Not because the ending was happy, it wasn't. Kat was still figuring out who she was beyond survival mode. Still lonely in ways that power couldn't fix. Still questioning if she'd become the thing she'd been fighting against. But Lily would never stand on a balcony wondering if she mattered. Lily would never reduce herself to fit someone else's vision. Lily would grow up knowing that love doesn't diminish you. And that was worth everything Kat had sacrificed. Everything she'd become. The final image, Kat sitting in her reading chair, a book in her lap, Lily asleep in her room, the city lights twinkling outside. Not happy, not sad, just real. A woman who'd survived, who'd fought, who'd won, who'd lost, who'd become someone she never thought she'd be. A woman still figuring out what comes after the ending. Because some stories don't end happy. Some have complicated endings, and some are still being written, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of uncertain peace at a time. Catherine Hayes, formerly Catherine Ashford, closed her eyes and breathed. Tomorrow Lily would wake up. Julian would text about their next visit. The company would need decisions. The foundation would need funding. Life would continue, messy and complicated and real. But tonight, right now, in this moment, Kat was simply a mother in a quiet apartment, grateful to be alive, grateful to have survived, grateful to have the chance to keep writing her own story. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything.